Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have a special remarriage story here for you today. My friend and colleague, fellow life coach, Lisa Drake, is here to tell her remarriage story. Lisa is a life coach for women in midlife, and she helps them make the leap even when their life is awesome. So yes, we want to hear a little bit more about who you are, what you do. Welcome, Lisa. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah. So, like you said, I'm a coach for women in midlife. I help them get clear on what's next. A lot of the ladies I work with, they've already been high achievers. They've done all the things, the kids, the work, all of the things. And now they find themselves late 40s, early 50s. And they're like, what's next? I don't even know what's next. And so we work to untangle that a little bit. We leave the things that don't serve us anymore, the tools that we're not using anymore. And then we start looking forward to what it is that they want to create with Act 2. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very fun.
A lot of my listeners are actually those women. Like you said, high achievers, lives are awesome. Like, yes. I got divorced. Everything's good. I got my money together. I got it together. And then they're thinking about dating or maybe moving into a partnership. And your clients are like, what's next? Even though they've checked all the boxes and gotten everything done.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's such a fun part of life to be in.
Yes. Awesome.
Very fun.
Yeah. So let's dive into your story. Now you got divorced and you met your partner and you chose to have a domestic partnership. That's what commitment looked like to you both.
Yes.
Versus marriage. So tell us a little bit about that. Why did you, because you made it official. It was like it's an official thing.
Yes. We're legit now.
Tell us about that. How did you come to that conclusion about the domestic partnership versus marriage?
Sure. So I think I should just preface by saying, so his name is Norm, and Norm and I are so low key. He has made me more low key by his low keyness. And we had been dating. We'd been together for just turned 7 years, and he's lifelong, bachelor's, was engaged at one point in his life, and they didn't go through with it, but just a real independent guy. And no kids, anything like that. And I have two sons. They're 22 or 23 and 24 now. And after I'd gotten divorced, which is about 13 years ago, I've always been fiercely independent, but now I'm fiercely.
I love it. Like independent. Super independent squared.
Super duper. And I met Norm when the boys were finishing up middle school and going into high school. And Norm and I each had our own homes, and the boys didn't need another dad. They weren't looking for another dad. Norm didn't want to be a dad. He knew that all along. That wasn't going to be in the cards for him. And we had very separate-ish lives. Like I had my boys a week on and a week off, and I would see Norm on the weeks that I didn't have the boys, and on the weekends, maybe for a date. But the majority of our relationship was that way. And so, in 2020, I moved to Colorado to get residency for my younger son, who's going to school here. And I left Norm back in Illinois. And that was kind of a come to Jesus for us. Like, what are we doing? I know that you're here, honey, and you have your whole life, but I'm leaving. So are you coming with? Are you not coming with? And he's like, yeah, I'll meet you there in a year. And so he did, and we did, and we bought a house. And I know this is a very long answer to your
no,
question.
it's a good one because I actually have a couple of questions around it.
And he bought the house. It just was easier that way. He bought the house, and we just decided we've been together for this long, and let's make it official. But I really didn't want to get married. And Norm's attitude was you get married if you're going to have kids. That's kind of his belief. But we also wanted to be recognized, like get the status of kind of like, I just say, a legit couple. And domestic partnership was the way that kind of checked all the boxes for both of us.
What were some of those boxes that it checked for you?
Sure. So what I love about it is all of our finances are separate, which that could just, even if you're married, that could still be a preference for the couple. But if we decide that we're not going to be together any longer for whatever reason, he doesn't automatically get my finances. I don't automatically get his finances. Everything that you get in a marriage something gets left to you or you're entitled to or whatever, none of that exists. And so even if he was in the hospital, I have to be named his power of attorney. Otherwise, his next of kin is the person that makes decisions.
It does not default to you.
Correct.
It's that default to the spouse situation.
Yes. That's all that is missing. So kind of in a domestic partnership, it's all reversed. And so we get to pick what are the things that we want to make the other person. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It does. So when you're married, your spouse gets all the rights and benefits and everything by default.
And the say. and the say.
in everything. And in this case, in a domestic partnership, you get only the things you specific. So you get nothing unless specified. You
get the status. So you're recognized. And I use that terms like you're recognized, right?
Like so for insurance or
insurance. Yes. Yeah. Or if we were to buy property together or a vehicle or something like that, both of our names would be on it. So that status part is what we got, but then everything else and for some, it's like, that's a lot of extra work. And we're like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine with us. Yeah, so it really allowed us to be separate and together, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. I love the way you put that, because I think after divorce, a lot of us are looking for that healthy balance in our autonomy. We do want partnership. We do want love and connection, but we don't want this tradition that's just been passed down where, and for women, it's not even like equal relationships are the default. It's the default, in any society, actually, very few societies have the default where it's egalitarian. It's more like, by default, the guy is like, has everything, unless you find a guy who's more progressive or more moderate, or even if he is conservative, just willing to come to the table and have a conversation where you opt into things versus assuming that things are the way they've always been. Yeah, that's so good. Now, when you were describing your relationship about when you first got together, you were living apart because you didn't live together until you moved, right?
Yeah, that's true. Until last July.
So you were together 6 years. You were in this relationship and lived apart. This is a dating coach's nightmare. I'm just going to tell you, which is why I'm asking about it. Whenever women come to me with this story, I'm like, listen, this is not what we're doing here, right? But you're the exception to what typically happens. What typically happens is they're living apart. Some of them are living 2 hours away. They're seeing each other, like you said, 1 week on, 1 week off. And the lives are not integrated. So a lot of times women don't see who they're really dating. And so instead of what was happening with you, where it was like, hey, this is a choice and I like it, it's more like, I'm believing that this is more than it is. How could you tell the difference between a situationship where a woman thinks she's in a relationship with a guy, but he like has 3 or 4 women installed around the city, And because they're not living together or their lives are not integrated, she can't tell.
Oh, yeah. Well, I made him go to the gym with me.
So you were more integrated in some ways.
So we did. We lived about 18 miles apart, right? Our towns in Illinois were about 18 miles apart. And I started going to this one CrossFit gym, and I encouraged him to come. And so he would meet me there after work a couple days a week. So there are times, he wasn't like having dinner and going to bed in my room, but I would still see him for an hour and a quarter or whatever, a couple times during the week, even if it was just for a workout. Right.
Yeah.
So I did see him then.
And it went on for 6 years.
Yeah. We didn't work out for 6 years, but yeah.
But what I mean is, you were together for 6 years.
Yes.
So usually these situationships don't last. They don't last 6 years.
It just did. Like we both,
right.
What I love so much, and sometimes I struggle with, I know more than he does because he wasn't married. And not that that's an issue at all, but it's my resetting beliefs about very traditional beliefs about relationships and how things are. And we hadn't lived together. When I sold my house in 2020, I kept very little, and I moved that stuff to his house, and I stayed with him for 2 months before my son Josh and I left for Colorado, and I left my dogs there with them. So, then
How did you know you could trust him? And I guess maybe that's a better way for me to ask that question was, how did you know he was like legit, just as a human, when you met him, when you first met him and were dating him? Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
So I did know him before. We were in elementary and middle school and high school together. He's a year older. We were not friends. We had a lot of the same friends. I knew of him. I was acquainted with him. And he friended me on Facebook a couple years before he even asked me out. And so I I just kind of saw like how and who he was, and plus my own memories, right?
So it was the difference between meeting a guy on an app.
Yes.
And
I mean,
this kind of a relationship versus, this is someone I know and there's trust and his network in.
I had a better chance of trusting. I'll say that, than if he was a complete stranger. Right. I kind of knew how and who he was from a very, very far distance. Like I said, we weren't like pals at all. In fact, I would never even have dated him in high school. He was a holy terror. But, there was some familiarity that he brought that made things, I don't want to say go faster, but just allowed me to drop into a little more safety and a little less reservedness, or a little less reluctance, or reticence, I think is the word. And because I dated plenty of people. I've been divorced for 13 years. Like, so it was half of that time, I had dated other people too. And I've had plenty of not great experiences. And I had a lot of great experiences too.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Norm and I is neither one of us forced anything.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of us were in a hurry for anything. And just getting married never really crossed my mind.
Right.
Like, he just is my guy. And I still call him my guy, right? My guy. I don't call him my husband because he's not technically my husband. I still feel weird when I say partner, but he's just we're in lockstep together, and he's just my guy, and we support each other, and we have lives together and lives apart. And I was never in a hurry for anything else. Like, I really never wanted to get married again at all.
Yeah.
And this was the most I would do.
Right.
I was never going to give everything away again.
Right. That was that out of fear?
Yes.
Or is that
well,
or wisdom,
wisdom.
Love it.
No, I mean, it's just, I think about it. I think, I've done a lot of my own work and, coaching, therapy, energy work, going to looking at the past, looking at systems and structures, looking at the patriarchy, looking at all of that and how I was affected by it all. And it's okay. It's okay. I just choose not to participate or put myself in that type of situation again.
And especially if what is the reason why one would is actually a question, just questioning what is. Yeah. Why are we doing it the way? Yeah. Why is that the default? And is the default serving anyone? And even in a situation where you're with someone who's not going to take advantage of you, or they're trustworthy or reliable, is that the best way to do things? And I think when we are just comfortable with what is, we don't create better things. We don't innovate.
Yeah, exactly. And I was really fine. My friends, like, you should write a book called The Permanent Girlfriend, right? Because that's like how I felt. And I was totally fine with that. Yeah. I really was. I was fine with not making our relationship any more than it was, because I fiercely wanted that independence. But the thing that, if I'm very honest with myself, he never wanted to take it away from me. Right. Yeah. Those were my thoughts and my history and experiences and whatever that put my brain on the alert that might happen. I got to watch out, be careful, whatever. Yeah. But if I'm really honest, I can't think of one time when that was ever threatened.
Yeah. It's amazing how we can have this whole experience in our own heads and think it's happening in the real world.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's pretty crazy, especially when it comes to relationships.
Yes. Yeah. It's a challenge because, and one of the reasons I love your story is because I just want to highlight how there are no formulas. And I know the reason I started doing more guest interviews was because I would hear people take one person's story and say, okay, well, Sally found a guy doing this, this, and this, and it worked out. And I was like, no. Let me show you this other story where she did exactly the same things and it didn't work out. It's not the external factors. It's not whether or not he was a lifelong bachelor, because, lifelong bachelors have a pretty bad rep out there today. A lot of women will write into me and say, I met this guy and he's never been married and he's never had kids. And I think that's a problem. And I'm like, are you even seeing the human in front of you before making this assumption or this conclusion? Yeah. Because not every guy who has been married and divorced with children is good for you. The assumption is that, I need to find someone. Like, it has nothing to do with any of those things. It's who's the human that you're looking at, and are they for you, and are they trustworthy?
Yeah. It was so funny because I would joke around. They're like, oh, is he divorced? Does he have kids? And I said, no, he's never been married, no kids. I said, you know what that means? It's at least a time, all the time.
Yes. That is yes. I'm here for that.
Right? I'm not going to some 5-year-old soccer game when I've got 20-year-olds. Like, I don't have to do all of that stuff again. And I fiercely did not want to.
Yeah.
right, did not want to, because I'm a mama bear, like my kids all the time, right? Number one and number 1A, right?
Yeah.
Like I love
And
those two.
it sounded like you didn't even want to share them with him. You're like, listen, you don't want to be a dad. I got this. I'm good.
and no expectations of him either. So, and I have to say that too, like dating and introducing guys to your kids and whatever, like I think my sons maybe met one or two people before Norm. That was it. I'm super protective of that. And they are very protective of me. And I let that relationship bloom in its own time, in its own way. I never had, like, I never required him, right? I can't require anyone to do anything. He was always invited to whatever it was when we wanted to invite him. And he could say no. He said no plenty of times. No, and that's okay. And the boys and Norm have created this really nice relationship on their own terms. I couldn't ask for better. When I told the boys that we were going to go get our partnership, they're like, you know what, Mom, we're just so happy for you.
I love that.
Right? They're just so happy. And he's not trying to take anyone's space, trying to be anyone other than his mom's partner.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how he shows up. And I had to kind of let that happen in its own time and in its own way. I had a lot of anxiety about it because in the beginning, I kind of want us all to be like a happy family. I'm like, that's just not realistic. Right. And it's going back to the way it was, right? When you're traditionally married and all that kind of stuff.
There's a certain picture, even for the traditional family, that's not realistic for probably a large majority of those families.
Yeah, exactly. So stepping back, believing, trusting, being open for discussion with all three of them all the time, letting them make their own decisions. There'd be times when my older son and Norm and I would do stuff and my younger guy wouldn't. Now we're here with him and the three of us do stuff. Right. My older son comes and visits. And so they all text each other for different things and different reasons. And I didn't even know. Right. So they have like their own little relationships and I couldn't be happier with how all that played out, but it wasn't easy in the beginning.
Yeah. And how old were your sons when they met him?
So I think they were in 8th and 9th grade.
Okay.
So whatever that is, just right before high school. We were together through their whole high school and he came to their high school graduation and stuff. And I have to give Norm such a hat tip. I mean, my former husband and I we're very friendly, close, talk, regularly, united front with the boys and stuff like that. And we make a great parenting team. We just didn't make a great couple. And, there they are, him and his whole family, all the people that I'm not part of that family anymore. And Norm came to the graduations with me and, he took the picture of me and my other family, and like made space for all of that. And wasn't going to not go.
Yeah.
But also wasn't looking to take, to be anyone other than just another person that loves these boys. And I have so much appreciation for that.
Right. He didn't make it about him.
No, not at all. I mean, I can't even imagine how uncomfortable it could have been. And you don't have to come. Like, it's not like we're going. If you'd like to come, I'd love for you to come. But if you say no, that's fine too. And he's like, no, of course I'll come.
Yeah. I love that. It's like, it's sort of like adulting. This is what adulting was always supposed to be.
Yes.
We were never supposed to make all these things mean anything about ourselves.
It took me a whole marriage to realize it's not how you do it.
Yeah. It's like, well, if I'm not in this specific picture, then I don't have the, role that I'm supposed to be in or all of that. Like,
yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so it's been very fun to see how all of this has kind of grown and bloomed in its own way with not, I'll say, overtending the garden, right? Just kind of letting things grow and be how they were going to be and figure it out along the way. Really, 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 I've let go of so many expectations in the best way possible. And
Yeah.
it didn't just like 6 years ago, I just woke up and didn't have expectations. Like this took me some time.
Yeah. I always tell my clients, because like the first, I don't know, 2/3 of our program is helping them find their person.
Mm-hmm.
And often they think, oh yeah, the work is done. I'm like, no. You don't know how to be in this relationship with this person. Like it's wonderful, but what you don't realize is that it's a completely different set of skills when you're actually with a good person. And you have a lot of skills in the other way of being, in the old marriage, in the single and fiercely independent stage. And then now this requires a willingness to be vulnerable and a willingness to negotiate and to let go of a lot of thoughts that you needed, in the past. Yeah. So I know you had talked about like sort of like roles that, you were wanting to play or not wanting to play in running a household. Now, you guys had roles for 6 years where it's like, your stuff's over here, mine's over here. And then you moved in together. How did you navigate that?
It was like, look how nice and clean my house is. Look at my beautiful yard. Let's stay at my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just started living together last July. It was so crazy because the whole process of me moving here and living here for a year to get residency for Josh. And then Norm had worked for AT&T and he had one more year of work before he could retire with his age and number of years of service and all that kind of stuff. I forgot where I was going. So
your roles now that you live together.
Yeah. Yes. Pardon me. So everything we had done for 2 years culminated when we pulled out of the driveway in St. Charles, Illinois with the moving truck on July 3rd, 2021, and arrived in this home together. We're like,
this is, we can't go back to what
like everything had been leading up to that.
Yeah.
And now who do you be?
Yeah.
Right. Who makes dinner?
Yeah.
Who puts the trash out on Sundays? Like, what do I do your laundry? Do I do my laundry? Are you going to the grocery store? Am I? Like,
do I give you a list when you go to the grocery store?
I'm still working on that part. Actually, I just do Instacart all the time now. But like all of the things from when I was married, all of that started bubbling up again.
Yeah.
Like, I need to make dinner and I'm the one who has to wash the sheets and I'm going to feed the dogs and I got to meal prep and all of these things. And I assumed them 100% that I need to finish working between 5 and 5:30 so that dinner can be on the table by 6:30. Those were my own things that I put on it. And then he would like go downstairs in the basement or the garage and start working out at 6. I'm like, making dinner, blah, blah. Like nobody cares. What am I even doing this before? I got like all these responsibilities. You're retired.
Yeah.
Like making up all this BS in my head.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because it was only literally like 4 weeks ago. I'm like, I just can't do this. I just can't be responsible for the groceries and for making dinner and all this stuff. And he just looks at me and he's like, so don't.
No.
And I'm like, wait, what? Like, that's an option? What do you mean? He's like, we just order in. I'm like, like I'm having like a panic attack. Right? Like all this I'm like, all the bullshit that I have put on me from programming that I saw from my mom that I walked. I mean, I got married when I was 23. Like I got married when I was 23 and my husband was 9 years older than me. And I fell right into the supportive wife role, right? All of that stuff, super patriarchy kind of thing, traditional, very traditional. And so now we end up here and I'm like, I got to do that again. Like not on purpose, but it was a default.
Yeah. It was
do that.
There. Yeah.
And so when he said that, I just like almost fainted. I'm like, what do you mean there's a choice? What do you mean? Yeah. And I'm telling you, I feel so free.
I love it.
And I'm so thankful for that, for that gift. And then also not like it's even a gift, but the gift of the realization that A, he has no expectations. B, I never asked him. I assumed.
Yeah.
And C, that I get to pick whatever I want to pick.
Yes.
I
I
feel
love
like
that.
1,000 pounds lighter. I'm telling you, I work till 7 when I want because I love
Yep.
working. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what we're eating. What do you think we should eat?
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so
100%.
liberating.
It is. And my, second marriage is sort of designed around that as well. I actually had sort of designed that with my children after the divorce, because I was like, listen, guys, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 8 years. We can't keep up this Martha Stewart or whatever.
Yes.
We
Yes.
can't keep this up. So, because I was commuting 45 minutes one way after the divorce, to work, and I was like leaving home at 6:45 or 7 in the morning to get to work on time, and I'm fighting traffic. I'm just not, So luckily they were in their early teens, so it was like, you guys are just gonna have to cook. So I just let them make their own, and then in return, I was like, I'm not gonna get on you if you decide to eat pizza every night. Like, those frozen pizzas that have zero nutrition in them.
Yes. The best ones.
The best ones. When we went to the grocery store, they bought whatever it is they thought they would eat. And I bought my stuff, and everyone just kind of took care of themselves, because it was like, it's a different world. And so when I got remarried, it was kind of the same thing. I'm like, listen, boo, I love you, but you're going to have to fend and forage for yourself in this marriage. This woman has left the kitchen.
And it's so funny you say that about how you did that with your sons or children. Because when it was just the boys and I, like, we sort of kind of set up this machine, right? Like, we had who's unloading the dishwasher, who's bringing in the garbage, who's starting the crock pot, and then I started giving them like easy stuff to put in the crock pot, get this going, whatever. Then my one son started cooking hamburgers at work. So then he would cook hamburgers at home. Right. And so we had like this really nice, everyone supporting everyone. And they're both, one's in college in an apartment, the other is on their own, and they have gained so many skills from it. And I'm really happy that we had that kind of machine set up. But when Norm and I got together, I defaulted. It never occurred to me, never crossed my mind once. It was like, I have to do it all.
Yeah.
Or it's just going to be my job. Not even I have to do it all like a martyr, but it's just like, that's just my job.
Yeah.
But just take it on with my kids. Yes.
Yeah. That's
automatic, super automatic. It's interesting you brought that up. That's what came up. I'm like, ooh, yeah.
Are you still having conversations where you're getting to know things about each other? Are you still discovering new things with having just lived, together for a while? Any surprises?
Yes. And they aren't conversations. They're just observations.
That's great.
Now, it is like, we just have different ways about us, and it's not good or bad. I've come to that, right? Just since July, I've come really far, and I make it what I want to make it. Right. Like, I'll be working in my office and I'll go, and he's a cooker and eater and put away with the dishes later. And I would go out and I'll have lunch. I'll come out for lunch, and I'm like, and I go and I clean everything. I'm wiping up the counter stuff. And then I'm just like, yeah, like, that's optional.
Yes. It doesn't mean anything about you if there's dishes in your sink.
It doesn't. It's crazy. Who knew? And so I'm like, oh, I'm just going to leave the dishes and see what happens. Did you know he cleaned them up?
What?
No, right. Yeah. So it's just the different ways. It's just a different way. Like, he's a brilliant laundry doer and folder and whatever. And I'm the most horrible one always. Yeah. Right. So it's just, it really has become a part of, I'm here to keep my side of the street clean, whatever I bring to the table. And I know you will in your own way. And I'm here to support you too. And I feel safe to ask you for support too. I mean, there's times I'm like, can you just go down Hayes' the grocery store? Can you just go get something? Comes back with the trusty rotisserie chicken and some rice and whatever. And like, cool, thanks.
Yes.
Right? No judgment, like, just allowing for the help. And most of all, allowing myself to ask. Because he's
So
never said, I'm
good.
not going to support you. I'm not, no way, woman, you go get that chicken. Like that's never a discussion.
Right, but those were
Right.
skills that many of us didn't exercise in our first
Totally.
marriages and didn't see exercised by our parents.
Mm-mm.
So really, there's this, I think we need to understand that we don't know what we don't know about healthy relationships.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's the God's honest truth. And the thing is that Brene Brown says, she starts a phrase with this, and I've used it so much, and it's such a nice opening for conversation. She says, the story I'm telling myself about this is. Story I'm telling myself when like I come out and like there's a pots and pans, blah, 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 that you don't care and whatever. Please help me untangle this. Please tell me where I'm wrong. And he's like, oh my gosh, I had to go to Home Depot because I'm building a deck and like and whatever. And I was going to take care of this later and stuff. And I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
And it's such a gentle, nice way to like take responsibility for your own thoughts and how you're feeling. I mean, I think it's really grown up to come at it that way and not like, why ain't you, or just sit because we're both avoiders, both just sit and pretend like we're not upset. Because we both know how that goes. It's like, I'm not available for that. Like I did this, I kept my mouth shut, and I have 7 years of history that says, you're not going to throw me out or give me a hard time or whatever, that you're at least opening to listening to what I have to say. And I get to exercise that. And of course, I've given myself that permission to exercise it, but he has created the space for me. And I have stepped into trusting him to do it. Like we bring so much of our own baggage, right? It's not them 100% of the time.
Yeah,
sure.
it's largely our thoughts.
It is.
Largely our thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this was so good. I wanted to just kind of wrap up with just going back to the legal side of a domestic partnership. And like, are there any thoughts that you'd like to share? So, when I work with women, my tagline says I help them get married again, but I do have plenty of clients who are like looking for a lot of things that are in between that. On the legal side of like creating a domestic partnership, what are some things that, listeners should be thinking about or considering to see if that's right for them or not?
Well, they're a little bit different in states, right? So there's like the civil union and the domestic partnership, and then there's common law marriage and marriage. There's like all of these different things that they call it. And so you can Google for your state and just go to your state's, whatever is the government website for your state and read about what it means. And that's how we came up with domestic partnership over civil union.
Right.
And seriously, this is how we decided. He walks in and I'm working and he says, so what if you want to get the domestic partnership?
And I'm like, that's random.
I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I swing my chair around. I look at Colorado.gov. I'm like, they got an appointment on Monday at 9. He's like, all right, let's do it. So I make the appointment and he leaves.
Wow.
We go down there. We give them our $25.
Yeah.
Sign the paperwork that says we're both in it to win it.
Wow.
They stamp it and we leave. And what I love so much is they let us figure out all the rest. Right. So
do you know why he brought it up? Was there a reason or something that precipitated it?
We were looking to get me on his insurance too after he retired and stuff. So we needed some documentation and whatever. And I really don't want it to sound like we did it for the insurance, because we didn't. It was something we needed to add to our life and the things that we wanted for us.
Yeah.
And 100%. I can see us, I'm sure we're going to buy more property or whatever here. And I would like for that to be joint. So, it just kind of was something to take care of. Yeah. And so, I'd
like to say you can do whatever you want for whatever reason you want. Like, listen.
I know I'm kind of explaining it away a little bit, but
I'm like, it sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, it is.
To me, the way I look at divorce is, listen, we've been divorced. We've done all these things. We get to do whatever we want afterwards.
We do. in any way we want. Like I literally
Right.
picked flowers out of our front garden and took them with me.
There you go.
Right. That was it. We went for breakfast and then came home and took a nap.
I
Like
love it. So good.
that was our thing. But so do the research, look and see what the differences are and see what appeals to you. Like I said, that like we were going to do it in Illinois and then we decided to wait to Colorado and because we had talked about it, but never like planned on it. So that was it's a beautiful thing for us. And honestly, if something goes south, one of us goes down there, we pay another $25, fill out another piece of paperwork.
Yeah.
Separate our stuff. Yeah. And of course, I don't want to think that way, but like, if you've already been divorced, sometimes you want to know, like, what are you on the hook for?
Right.
How can I want to go through to worst case scenario here before I jump into anything.
Yeah. And it's such, like I said before, it's such an adult way of looking at life. Mm-hmm. Like the way people talk about divorce is, well, you can't talk about divorce or you can't have a prenup because that's jinxing the marriage is really childish thinking. It's like the people who say, well, I won't want to have a will because when I create a will, then I'm going to die. It's like, well, you're kind of going to die at some point.
Right.
You may as well have a say.
Right.
When you come into a relationship, there is a possibility that the relationship might not work out. Not that you're trying for it to not work out or you're quote unquote jinxing it. But when we look around at what's happening in reality, it's a possibility. So why not have a say? Like you said, in how it plays out. Why not have safeguards for both of you, not just for one person, but for both people? And wouldn't it be a sign that this was the right person if you could have that conversation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we both have all of our money is kept separate. We have one account that we both deposit to for the household expenses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I'm responsible for certain things. He's responsible for other things. And like, that's just that. Like,
it doesn't mean anything about you at all.
No, it doesn't at all. And that's okay. I don't need to know. Like, all I want to do is be responsible for my side of the street.
Yeah. So good. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your very unique story, and I don't even know how unique it is, whether a lot of people are doing this or not, but I do know that it is an option that is available.
Yes. And
I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to let women know, listen, you can do it however you want.
You can. You so can. Yeah. Thank really. So and much. Do it. Do it your way.
Yes. So good.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please tell listeners where they can find you online, spell out a couple of your social media handles, and we'll link it all up in the show notes.
Thank you. So my website is everydaystrongcoaching.com. Same thing with my IG handle. And then you can just look up Everyday Strong Coaching on Facebook. It's pretty simple. Same thing for all of them.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. Please follow Lisa on the links in the show notes or just Google. I already forgot it. Everyday Strong Coaching. I was like, am I getting it right? Everyday Strong Coaching. Google Everyday Strong Coaching, Lisa Drake. Follow her online. If you're a woman in midlife, she has so much wisdom. If you're ready to do things your way, if you're fiercely independent, which I know there are a lot of you in the audience listening, she is your woman. Thank you all for your time and attention, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.